Hey, welcome back to the Race Factory. It's been quite a few programs now. I've managed to speak to the likes of Sean Torrente, Marit Strömmer, Timmy Siebel, and tonight I'm going to have a chat with a real good friend. I mean, it takes a long time to get an old friend, and Chris Davies has been working alongside me for 25, 30 years now. I'm actually too shy to say it. One of the questions prior to this one, when we posted this, came from Sarah Donoghue. She said, is it going to be small photos? Well, Sarah, I can tell you one thing. These are big images and it's a big photographer. So let's welcome Chris Davies. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Are you used to being picked up on when it comes down to small photographer?
Yeah, I mean, I love the name small photographer. I suit it. I think it's a nice sort of. I could be called a lot worse. Put it this way.
I can imagine. Well, you know what, Chris? I shared with you that I am as nervous as before I'm jumping in the cockpit before a race, and you actually told me that you were nervous before the races as well. How come?
I've got sweaty hands now.
You do?
I think it's maybe because a lot of people that I know are sat in those boats, and also the fact that I've got to come out with something that you guys are going to go, oh yeah, okay, we're happy with that.
Perfect. So, how's the lockdown been?
Oh man, it's like, ooh. I mean, do you know what the really worst thing is at the moment?
Tell me.
All the barber shops are closed, and my hair is just like, oh, unbelievable, mate. I really could do with sorting it out.
You know what? As long as you don't go back to the barbershop on that side, because I pulled up a picture of you from St. Petersburg back in the year 1992, was it?
Wow, 95, I think. My God, where did you get that from?
Well, I got my sources, so you better not go back to that one, that's for sure.
No, I don't think I'll be going back there anytime soon. God, look at the colour.
So, Chris, tonight we're going to spend an hour plus together with our Powerboat friends. They obviously understand the system now because comments are popping in like you would not believe it. Gary Harmon says, hi, Chris, and Sarah is laughing her teeth out because I just pulled up the joke on the small photographer. So it's almost as exciting as NASA's rocket launch countdown yesterday. Did you see that one?
I saw it, but it was those suits that they were wearing. I mean, normally you expect these guys to go on there with big masks and everything else like that, and these guys were looking like straight out of Thunderbirds. I mean, what's that all about?
What's that all about? Anyway,
let's just crack on and have a look at some pictures, shall we?
Definitely. I'm going to run the pictures, and you are going to talk about them. Picture number 1. We have a Colibri boat here.
Yeah, Pironi. Back in 1987, the Needles Trophy. It was the first race that I actually ever took. And at the same, it was brand new to me. This was a completely new sport. I started out by sending photographs of rally cars and racing cars to my local paper, the Echo in Bournemouth.
Okay.
And it took a long time to go knock. I mean, it was after a while they sort of probably just gave in and started publishing my work. And then they asked me if I would go up to Thruxton to photograph a motorbike race. And I said, yeah, of course I would. In the end, I got a season pass to go and photograph at Thruxton for them. Mm-hmm. And then they said that, oh, by the way, we've got another job for you. Okay. I'm going, okay, yeah. So Sunday morning, could you go and photograph a powerboat race? And I'm going, yeah, okay. Never done it before in my life. I'll give it a go. Yeah. So I shot down to Poole, got on this press boat, and we went out there and photographed the race. And oh man, I was so ill. I was so ill. It was the flattest race they'd ever had, and yet I turned green like the screen that's behind you.
And you were not used to boating.
No. And then the press officer, Sally Windsor, she came up to me and said, I need to get back ashore. There has been a major incident. And I'm going, oh, please take me back. Please take me back. I need to get back to dry land. So she sort of took me back ashore, and I shot off to Thruxton because I had to go and photograph the Superbike race that was up there. I didn't know what was going on. Sure, she's not going to tell me. No. So the first I knew about it was when I walked into the press office at Thruxton. And back then, the BBC were filming it, the Superbike race. Yeah. And Murray Walker was in floods of tears.
Wow.
And I'm like...
The guy with all the comments. or
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
quotes. Yeah.
Yeah. Murray Walker was there. He was in the press office and he was like mortified. And I'm like speaking to the press officer. I'm going, hey, what's up with Murray? And she went, oh, don't you know, Didier Pironi's just been killed in a powerboat race.
Really?
And I'm going, okay, no, I didn't know that. Would that be the one that happened down in Poole by any chance? And it was like, yeah. So I was like, dilemma time, because I know that I'd shot all the boats going round. I mean, okay, I was hardly out on the water, but I knew I'd seen his boat at least once. But at the same time, I thought, well, what do? Do I quickly dash home, process the black and white roll of film, and see if we can do it that way? Or do I stay and photograph the bike race and then make sure that I finish the job for the paper? So I stayed and finished the bike race. And then we went back home, processed it, found a picture, like the picture that you're showing, and then shot it down to the Echo. And, you know, the funny thing about that was that it was almost like too late in a way. But one thing that I did learn was the fact that the pictures that I took on the water that day were far more exciting than any of the shots that I'd taken up at Thruxton.
You were hooked.
Yeah, because even when the boats were going past off the plane, with all the spray and all the colour and the atmosphere, it was just wonderful. It just lent itself to photography. And, you know, when I was up there at Thruxton, there was like 50 other photographers there. And when I was out the boat, there was possibly about 3 other photographers.
Does that say something about our sport, or?
Well, maybe, but also it meant that, you know what, as a young photographer trying to set out on my partner, you know, on a career, I just thought, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to try and battle with the 50 motorsport photographers, or am I going to try and battle with the other couple of photographers that were on the press boat? So to me, it was like a natural thing to do.
Well, we are glad that you made that choice. It was, of course, a race that went into the history books, and we had the Colibri boat in Arendal just a few weeks prior, so that boat meant a lot to the Norwegian community as well. I just want to read up a couple of comments, Chris, because we have the likes of, let me have a look here, Carlos Maidana. And Joy. JP from the photo team is on here, and Gary Harmon, he is sending funny boats and so on. Alistair down in Abu Dhabi is greeting us and saying hello. Hi, Alan. And we got some very, very good comment here. So keep pumping them comments out, and we will lift them up to the screen. But now I am going over to the next photo which you have chosen, because Chris, you have chosen 10 images from your time in Powerboat racing, and the second one is Victory Team, and I gotta say this had to be prior to the GoPro.
Yeah, it was. I mean, GoPro, I think it was about 2004 that the Hero actually came out. So, you know, this is a good 10 years before the GoPro arrived on the scene. And it just needed to be done.
Let's see how the big man did this one. So, Chris, you're actually strapped onto a boat here. I'm showing the pictures here now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this was taken at the 1993 Gold Cup over in Guernsey, a week-long powerboat festival. Man, we had some fun. These guys raced hard, but do you know what? It's the old adage, they partied even harder. And every night, Dickie Ridout, who was in charge of it back then, he would throw on some amazing parties. Okay. And I'm sure that I was chatting with my good friend Alan Ewings, and we were probably at one of these parties, and maybe had a few too many shandies. I don't know, a few too many sherries. Because obviously the topic of what are we going to do to make the photo a little different here. So I said, oh yeah, I'll just tie myself to the front of a Victory boat. And they obviously thought, okay, this guy's basically bluffing. Yeah. So no, the following day, when it was practice day, we went down there and they lashed me on the front of this cat. Yeah. And you know what the really ironic thing about it? I can't remember whether it was Jim Poole or whether it was Adrian. They gave me a dive knife to strap to my leg. Okay. And I'm like, what do I need a dive knife for? And they sort of turned around and said, well, if the boat flips over, you can cut yourself free. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and imagine, God knows how many tons those bloody boats weighed. Those aluminium boats, they were heavy as it was. But yeah, and then we came back and I mean, it was one of those ones where, once again, it was taken on colour transparency. So I had 36 shots to get it right. And hopefully I did. Hopefully I nailed it. It was used all over the place. So then obviously, I'm not sure whether you've shown them the next shots, but I went back and I repeated the same shot 3 years later when we were over in Dubai. This time, I think we had Felix Sorales and a tyre in the boat as well. And the problem was I couldn't get too close to Sorales because the whole time he was laughing his head off. He just thought it was just the most bizarre thing that he'd ever done, you know, because
he had to flip his visor. He had to flip his visor
down because otherwise he would it just cracked up laughing. But, you know, that year they won the World Championship and it went everywhere. So, you know, it was good. It was good fun. Would I do it again? Hell no. That's what the GoPro is there for.
Yeah. I mean, with a suction cup and a small little 300 euro camera, now you have the best images, and probably the drivers are so used to it they don't even what can I say, pay attention.
No, sure.
But looking at the picture here now, which showed up in the newspapers, he's literally laughing his head out.
Sorales, I love that guy. Felix Sorales was such a pleasure to work with.
Very, very good. So that was actually already picture number 2. And going over to the image number 3, it says on my notes, UAM F1 Chalon-sur-Saône.
Oh, what a venue.
Let's have a little video clip coming up here. So, the picture actually speaks for itself. We got the whole, what can I say, river.
Yeah,
and
what is the river zone?
Full of boats, wide. Tell us more about it.
It's a beautiful venue. I mean, to be honest, you'd have, as a photographer, you couldn't really go wrong there. It was just the perfect venue, and it was my first ever F1 race that I went to. Phil Duggan, way back then, he wanted a new photographer to photograph Formula One. And so what happened was that it was difficult for him to suggest it because the photographer at the time, Brian, he was best mates with David Parkinson, who was the promoter of F1 back then. Okay. So I had my work cut out, and so I wasn't going to be invited to Chalon. So what Phil did was Phil said, no, you can come down and you can work for me. Mm-hmm. So I met up with Phil and his mechanic, a guy called Eddie Evans, and we jumped down, and we're late. Phil was late for everything. So I get in the van on our way to Dover. We're just on the outside of Dover, which we're literally minutes away from missing the ferry. Yeah. And then Phil turns around to Eddie Evans and goes, you got Chris's ticket? And Eddie said, oh, I thought you were getting his ticket. So it was like, well, they didn't have a ticket for me to get on the ferry. So what they did was they said, okay, right, Chris, get in the back of the van and throw a blanket over the top of you. So I was like, are you guys serious? Yeah, oh, thanks. I really feel part of the team here.
Well organized.
I literally crawled under the blanket and we got on the ferry, and then I popped out and we cracked on. And then I rocked up in Chalon, and it was just a brilliant venue, and I think I just really fell in love with the whole of Formula One. Once again, Chalon was a perfect place to go to. It had the atmosphere, and you, as I said, you really couldn't go wrong. The thing that Phil had said was that I needed to get the images back to them in their office Tuesday at the latest. Okay. So it was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. I can do that. No worries at all. But then once I got the job, obviously the next round was in Hungary. It was Dunavarsh. Yeah. Quite a same layout, but what a difference.
Yeah. Two different worlds.
What you got to remember is this was pre World Wide Web Day. This was back in 1992. Yeah. So the way that JBS, which was David's company, put the releases out was by post.
Oh yeah.
So after every Formula One race, they sent out 400 releases by post. So what happened was we had to go back to the office, get the film processed, print it up, we had to fax over copies of what the image would look like. And then Pippa or Phil would get on the phone and go, "Hi, Chris, we need 400 copies. Can you bring it up ASAP?"
Yeah.
So then I used to lug up 400 copies to their address in Bond Street, and I'd help them shove them into the envelopes, and then that's it. That's how we did it back then. It was just all like the post. And that went everywhere, around the world, Japan, everywhere. It was like America. But one of the things that we had to, or one of the things that I would be absolutely ripped to pieces for, is if there was no Mercury on it. We had to have lots of Mercury branding in the shop, because obviously Mercury was a big client of David back then.
Of course. Ken
But,
McCrory,
yeah.
he says that you were also part of the Formula 3 Castrol team as the
Yeah.
official photographer.
Yeah, I was. I loved the Formula 3. I just wish that it was something similar to it now. Yeah, because what you got to remember was back then, Formula 1 and Formula 3 would often rock up at the same venue. So like Hungary, they would be the Formula 3 guys in the paddock with the Formula 1 guys. And at that time, you see, one of my clients that I quickly got hold of was Castrol International. And they were really, really big in promoting their guys like Ken McCrory, Paul Blackburn, Jamie Stallard eventually raced with them as well in Formula 3. And obviously in Formula 1, you had the likes of Steve Curtin, you had the likes of Andy Elliott, and all these other various people, including my very good friend Guido Cappellini.
Ken has obviously a lot on you, because he said that he not only took picture of both, but also of question marks. Will he give answers later? I don't think so.
After 9 o'clock, Ken.
After 9 o'clock.
I mean, the good thing was that we used to travel in a Chambers and Cook, who was the sponsor. They have a big bus that we used to travel down in. So everywhere that we went to, there would be like it had 4 bunk beds in it, had a kitchen, had Liam at the front driving the bus. And it was just great. And, hey, it was just like a rock group on tour. So, hey, what happens on tour stays on tour.
Well, he said, oh, yes, it's not rude. So, well, I don't know.
Do you know, actually, I photographed his wedding.
Oh, you did?
I photographed Ken McCrory's wedding.
Probably that one. Well, Christian, he says, dream day, sitting close to Torque with a beer and watching this. Hope that the old crazy race days would continue and that we manage to raise the interest even more. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. I'm glad they like it.
So do I.
In this particular photo, I was studying this when I was building it up. And I quickly saw Guido Cappellini's boat because he had a number 1 on it. But on top of that, on pole position, that's my old mate and mentor, Michael Werner.
Yeah, Michael had a superb year that year. He really did. I mean, he was winning races left, right and centre. He probably should have won the title that year, but he just got... I don't know. I just think he whether the pressure got to him or whether Guido just upped his game, I don't know. But it was one of those years that finally went against Werner.
24 different powerboat racers. Is there anyone still competing on the picture?
Yeah, you have a look at that grid. That was taken back in 1994. You have a look at that picture and you tell me who the guy is that's still racing today. And he's not racing F1, but he's still racing high profile.
66 silicone.
There you got it.
And of course we prepped it, and it's the flying Jelf, Owen Jelf. He was racing back then in which year?
1994.
1994. Andy Elliott, he is on here and he says it's got to be Owen. And you're correct, Andy. Nice to see you on here. I'm so happy to tell you also that the Tønsberg Boat Race is going to take place this year. So you have contributed so much and been with us for the previous years. So I'm glad to see that. Even Jason Mantrip, he picked up that one, Chris. So I'm just trying to keep track on the comments here as well, because we have a lot of guys following us, posting comments and interacting with us. So... Oh, and Colin raced that year as well. Not in that Formula 1 event, which was your first one. That was the particular reason for that question. But Jenny told me late last night that Colin had retired. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, but the problem you see, what they were running their own boats back then. So yeah, I mean they did a good season. They had a really, really good year. I remember the first race we had in '94, I think, was in Puerto Cervo in Sardinia. That was a fantastic venue. And both of them were there, and Ted was there overseeing them. But I don't know, the boats just never weren't competitive enough, I suppose, in the fairest point of view, which was a real shame, because I just get the feeling that had those guys actually gone out and bought something like a DAC, then I think that they would have really been very, very hot on the podium.
Competitive drivers, I race them both, and it's always a pleasure, and it's always good fun. Christian is asking, when is Tønsberg? It's 7-9 of August this year. So we are going to make it a live event. Main focus is not to make a big party out of it, but to make a good boat race and to live stream it. Okay, let's continue with the pictures. Chris, we have done a lot of work for this episode, and image number 4, Guido Cappellini. Have a look at this one. It's a blue sky. There is no race boat here, and a beautiful dog.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not exactly a picture that most people were expecting of Guido. But you know what? I've got, I don't know, hundreds of shots of Guido. So it would have been hard to choose a racing shot. So what I've done is I've gone back to 2000. The year that Guido asked me to go down to Monaco. He was racing with a Monegasque license that year. In fact, he had a little apartment in Monaco as well, which I went and had a look at. He was so happy about living in Monaco and having that apartment. Yeah. You know, one of the things that he pointed out to me was that there was like a ranking of where everybody was on the various levels of apartment block. Okay. I don't know whether it still happens today.
Sure
but
is.
He was higher than the F1 driver Giancarlo Fisichella. Okay. He had an apartment lower down, but he did say that he was a little he wasn't as high up as Mick Doonan, the motorbike racer. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it was like there was a hierarchy back then. So what the story goes behind the weekend was that he'd invited me down because he'd won the championship the year before, and he was going to give Philip Zeptar his trophy, his helmet, to him to put in the office.
Yeah.
So I was like, I flew down there, met up with Guido, and away we went. And the morning that we went and did the photo shoot, I was all sort of set up, ready to go. Guido rocked up with his helmet, Philip Zeptar in his office, and away we went. Yeah. Got the camera out, started taking pictures. Once again, it's on transparency film. Click. Everything's fine, perfect, no problems at all. Lovely picture, hands shaking, and everything. Go to take the next picture. The flash packs up. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good news. This is not what I want to do. So what happens was, and bear in mind, Guido doesn't know about this either. I hadn't told him. Right. So what happens was I got them to go closer to the window because I said, oh, well, I tell you what, I don't like working in flash. I much rather prefer it with natural light. So we got them to go over and stand next to the window and do everything again. When I got back to the UK, I looked at them and I was really panicking.
Yeah, I can imagine you flew to Monaco.
Yeah. 36 exposure film laid out on the desk.
Uh-huh.
The first exposure was the only correct exposure. Everything else was black. So I cut this out and I was like, oh my God, thanks for that. And it was perfect. It was both of them shaking hands, smiling, looking at the camera. There was no shadow behind them. It was just... oh man, boy, were the photographer gods looking down on me that day. So I sent it off to Guido, and he sort of said to me, Chris, just one shot? I said, trust me, Guido, that's the best shot. That is it. I didn't want to say, That's the only shot we had. That was the best shot we had, and he was fine. He was happy about it. So after that, we went out and walk around the casino, and we went out with his dog, and we went on his boat, and we spent the rest of the weekend together. It was a great weekend.
Perfect. And I would like to make an announcement right here, right now, because I got a big news for this channel, which makes me very proud. Because the next guest on the Race Factory is Guido Capellini himself, the 10-time world champion. He is, honestly, Chris, that's a big thing for me. I have had the pleasure of speaking to his 2-time world champion, Sean Torrente. I have been speaking to Marit Strömøy. I've been speaking to Sami Celio and Alex Carella. And they're all telling stories which is related to Guido Capellini and how he is now the team manager of Abu Dhabi and so on and so on and so on. So join us next Sunday at 1800 GMT, because this man, Mr. Guido Capellini himself, is going to be on the show. So, well, what can I say, Chris? Chris Davies, Guido Capellini, it's, the hierarchy. I mean,
I've got so many questions I could ask Guido, but you know what? Maybe not.
Maybe not. Sven Krekels is on here from Germany. And I should actually make, I don't know, the horn or something, because thank you, Sven. Welcome back to the show. I'm pretty sure since you follow the show, you know the question asked.
Yeah, I know exactly that. And you know what? It's never going to happen in a million years.
No Hawaiian pizza?
No, I don't even... Who puts pineapple on a pizza? I'm sorry, but that is just you?
No. There's several guys. I mean,
really?
The likes of Eric Stark, he confirmed the same thing, and Sami Celio was like ananas, because I'm not sure if it's pineapple or pineapple. I'm saying it wrong,
No, pineapple's fine. But you know what? I bet when you ask Guido next week, he'll be no way you're going to put pineapple on a pizza.
I don't think we're going to have this. Goosebumps, that's cool. And Guido, woohoo! Yeah, people are quite excited that we're going to have.
Yeah, they're going to turn off now and just wait till next week. I know.
No, the numbers are rising. So feel free to share the stream. Feel free to like and put comments like you do. We will continue to communicate with you guys. Chris, we gotta continue. We are halfway down the show here. We are going into picture number 5. And if I have my notes correct, it says attacking Vikings.
Yeah.
Have a look at this one. Beautiful scenario here with a Pro V boat.
Oh, I love that series. I mean, Pro V was a brilliant series. At the time, it ticked all the right boxes, but unfortunately it was hijacked by the wrong people. But hey, let's get off that subject. Now, this particular shot, attacking Vikings, was taken up in, and you're going to kill me because I can never pronounce this place correctly. Buda. Okay, inside the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
I mean, to the best of my knowledge, it's the only race that's ever taken place inside the Arctic Circle. And obviously that time of year, it's 24 hours sunlight. So we started the race at midnight. And it was just the most amazing and odd experience of trying to keep yourself awake for a start, and then strapping myself into a helicopter with Pam and Eric.
Let's see if I have a picture of that one. Would that be the picture B? Let's see here.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Wow. Okay, so I managed to pull the picture up here.
Yeah, I mean, so we look like something out of the Teletubbies. With that sort of color costume on you, but it was like a survival suit because we needed that. Because if the helicopter put down in those waters, then we ain't going to survive very long. And if I'm in my shorts and t-shirt, and there's many a time when I've flown with Eric and Pam. I mean, funny enough, we did another race, another Pro V race we did up in Arendal.
Okay.
Yeah, so just up the road from where you are.
Yeah.
And
it's where I was raised and born.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember we'd taken off in the helicopter. And it was pulling all the G-turns, and we were doing all the maneuvers, and the pilot was basically showing off, and Eric and I are hanging on for grim death, and then Eric waved something at me, which sort of caught my attention. It was the other end of my harness that I hadn't clicked into the carabiner.
So you were hanging loose.
I was so hanging loose. It was just unreal. And all of a sudden, I'm like, whoa, okay, let's just clip this onto where it should be before I decide to fall out of the helicopter. Yeah. That sort of caught my attention.
I can imagine. How long time did you shoot the Pro V boats?
Oh, we did the whole series. I mean, it was, as I said, it was a fantastic series. I loved it. The concept was just perfect. I just wish it would keep going today, but obviously we're all getting older. It's one of those ones that you look back and you go, hey, I had some great fun. I mean, the beauty about it also was that we had Tiff Nadell as the guy from originally from Top Gear, then Fifth Gear, and now he's doing Love Cars. So he's still around, but I mean the antics that Tiff and I used to get up to were great.
That was picture number. What happened now? I lost you for a moment. That was picture number 5. Let's jump on to picture number 6. Whole lot of water to me, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I call sleigh ride at Watergate Bay. It's actually Zapcat racing. It's the little inflatable boats. In fact, actually, I vaguely remember one year didn't you promote the Thundercat World Championships?
I did. I organized it in Grimstad in 2012.
Yeah. So it's a similar sort of thing, but one thing that they had that you didn't have was an awful lot of surf.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is a shot of the guys going through all the surf and just hitting the waves and taking off. It is just one of the it's another one of those photographs that you go, yeah, it works every time.
Yeah.
So the reason I called it sleigh ride is because it's like I pinched the idea from the guys that race offshore boats through the Southern Ocean, and all of a sudden they get like this huge wave that fills the deck. Well, it's a sort of thing. It's sort of similar scenario. And the beauty about sort of this type of racing is that anybody can get down on the beach and get your camera out and start taking photographs, because it's such a it's almost like, I suppose, rallycross on water, because it's almost like over. Start goes, couple of laps, it's finished, and they do loads and loads of heats all afternoon, and it's just so easy for Joe Public to go along and watch. And I just love it. It just makes great photos like that. You don't have to try hard. They keep coming back to you.
Andy Elliott, he said that Eric and Mr. Dynamite won the race in Grimstad. Was great to watch, and it is probably one of the race categories that I have most questions about, also for Tønsberg, because we had them here as well. I have a friend from UK, Paul Furman. He has been a regular guest here. He says, hi guys, please can I ask Chris a technical question? What is his lens of choice for photographing circuit powerboat racing action shots?
300mm. 300mm. I've been a Nikon diehard for probably since I was at art college. And I've always used 300mm. It's like my go-to lens. Sometimes I'll put a 1.4 converter on it, so it takes it up to 450. But 300, I've even started not necessarily shooting just action with it, but I've also started shooting a lot more candid images around the pits of drivers talking to other drivers, because you're not in their face.
No.
So you can actually start and get some really nice pit shots with it as well. Because I sometimes think that when I see people's pictures on Facebook, they go along and they photograph the race and put all the race boats up, which is really, really good to see.
Yeah.
But sometimes what I want to see is I want to see more pictures of people in the pits.
Exactly. Those are the most popular.
I love that sort of photography. I think it
Yeah.
really, really works.
Couple of questions which we are going to pull up now. Ken McCrory, he asked, which formula gave you the best pictures, and what would you like to see happen with powerboat racing in the future? Good question. Thank you, Ken.
What formula gave me the best pictures? Okay. Well, obviously, I mean, Formula One, because I did it for 10 years. That gave me, and it also gave me probably the chance and the opportunity to get to know a lot of the drivers.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, you had Sammy on.
Yeah.
Well, Sammy and I spent a weekend up at his house, and we went snowdoing, or no, what do they call it? I can't remember what they call it on the snow bikes.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time chatting in the sauna. So it's not all about what happens at the race site. It's trying to get to know these people outside the environment, which I think is sometimes we should concentrate a little bit more on that. What I would like to see happen with powerboat racing is develop personalities.
Yeah.
Because if we come to a stage now where if everybody's racing, say like a DAC okay, so you've also got the more boats in, and also you've got other brands out there like Baba as well. But the boats are beginning to all look the same. The only thing that I think is different are the people actually who sat in the cockpit. I mean, a perfect example is Marit Stromoy.
Yeah.
Man, the amount of publicity that she does. How many times have I seen her shots of her in the gym working out? I would love to see what all the other drivers are doing at the moment as well, because I think that's the way that we need to develop the sport. Is it's going to be personality driven. One of the things that Torrente said to you the other day was that he's not exactly on Alex Carella's Christmas card list.
No, definitely. We learned that.
But the thing is, what we need to do is we need to possibly concentrate a little bit more on that. I love the program on Netflix that they're doing about Formula One motor racing.
I love it.
Where they go behind the scenes. They hardly have any of the race.
No.
But what they do is they talk to Gunter from the Renault team, and he's there swearing his head off. And it's more, there's like a human contact. And I love that sort of thing. I just wish that Christian Langer and myself were allowed to do that, because I get the feeling that in Formula 2, we could do that. We could just walk into someone's tent who's had a particularly bad day, shove a camera in their face and go, hey, what happened today?
Yeah.
We're either going to be told to go away or they'll just sit there and tell us what's gone on, or an accident when for example, say Brent Dillard and Johan Osterberg had a crash together in Tonsberg. Then one of the things that I like to do is I went and spoke to Brent Dillard, and also I spoke to Osterberg.
Yeah.
You've got two completely different stories there, but you know what? I think it would make a great TV show.
Definitely. Johan was on here, actually. He said, hello, big man. So he's here. Bob Hammond, he is asking, do you think you have taken the ultimate racing photo yet? Or are you still thinking I could get a better one like that? Speaking as a photographer myself, I'm always thinking that.
I mean, I must admit, he's one of the things that we were told when we were left at art college was that the best photo is the one that you've just had published.
Yeah.
So, hey, you've got a little friend there.
Oh, I got Mika here.
And yeah, hi, Mika. Have I taken the ultimate shot? I don't know yet. Only time will tell.
Let's see. Has Chris taken, in his opinion, the perfect powerboat picture? Is he still waiting? Okay, basically same question. So Paul says thank you. And he also says social media has a big role to play in powerboat race promotion. And I second that. So I could also start to talk about the accident I had with Johan, but we can leave that for a later occasion. We had a very good one, blow over together. He blames me and I blame him, and but we're too damn good friends to argue, So
okay, which is good, and everybody survived.
Behind the scene, Gary says, behind the scenes shows the personality of the drivers and the team. And yeah, we agree. And I think that we have spoken about that, and it has come up on all of our shows, basically. So I think that's something we have to work on, my friend.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Are you ready? So who should I bully?
Yeah, but everybody loves you, Frode. That's the thing.
Oh, that's not the thing. That's not the thing. We are into, let's see, image number 7, if I recall correctly here. Yeah. Here we pull up a beautiful GT15 picture, and I put a smile on my face when I see this one, Chris, because I have Camilla racing GT15. I had my nephew Sindre and so on, but now you tell me why you chosen this particular photo.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky because obviously, as we've seen earlier in some of the pictures, I've worked with some really, really big teams. I mean, I've worked with the likes of the Victory team. I've worked a lot recently with Team Abu Dhabi, with the Sharjah team. So these are all well-funded teams. They've got lots of technicians, lots of mechanics. And I sort of sometimes think it's nice to actually go back and photograph these smaller classes because 9 times out of 10, the person actually who's looking after the engines, looking after the boats, cleaning them down, prepping the drivers are the family. And you probably find that there's an awful lot of trust in that little hand that's gone across to the big hand holding her on the side of the dock.
Of course.
And I think that's what it is. I also sometimes think that actually it could be tougher to race with your family, because if you're having a really bad weekend, can you imagine the conversation on the truck on the way home?
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's nowhere to hide.
No.
Whereas the likes of Sean Torrente, he can just sort of zip on an airplane and go home again, and he's gone.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier for them to rock up. But even Torrente, when he started racing, he was racing in the smaller classes. So obviously he had his family there, making sure that everything worked okay. And I mean, it is tough. I mean, I think that Camilla's very brave to follow in your footsteps. I think it's really, really tough. A lot of those guys out there, a lot of the youngsters who've started in the sport have started it because their fathers or their mothers have gone racing.
Can you imagine being little Jelf growing up in that family?
I think Ben, I love Ben to bits. I think he's a really, really nice guy. But I mean, once again, I mean, he's got his uncle Owen, who we saw earlier doing backflips. His father, 4 times F2 world champion. Was it 3 times? I can't remember. I always get that wrong. And his mother, who ran Powerboat racing in the UK for quite some years. I mean, that's a tough environment to be born into. And I remember last year when we were in Rouen together. I mean, he drove himself there. He didn't have the family with him. He threw himself into the French team, and he did a bloody good job.
Yeah, he have been going to a good school. Bob Hammond says, which do you think is the best course to take photographs? Okay, so you've been around the world 7 times, and favorite race course?
Chalon. Chalon-sur-Saône, without a shadow of a doubt.
And while we have the GT15 photos up here, I have a friend, Christopher. He said, so true, you should try to have 2 daughters. That has a bad weekend. Exactly. I have one, so that's for sure. Yeah, what about the famous Hill family, Ken McCrory says. And that you get another one there, that's for sure. Yeah. That's for sure. Yeah. So, I mean, hanging around Michael Werner for years, I mean, I think I've heard "what's this for shit" more times than I can count,
Exactly. Yeah. I love Michael. He's a great guy. So many stories. I just wish somebody would write his book one day.
We are definitely going to at least get his memos down in a visit here to the race factory very soon.
Good. He'd be a very interesting person to put up. Hey, maybe you should have him the week after Guido. Yeah. He's got some interesting stories on Guido.
Definitely. That I will try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, he could have been Guido's father-in-law. Anyway, let's move swiftly along.
Yeah, we're not going there. I'm putting up a
Okay.
little video edit of a picture which you have called Meta.
One of the things that Meta decided to do is that she is so big into Instagram that I thought, well, look, let's do something a little bit different. Let's try and take her out of a normal environment. So Piccadilly Circus was to be the perfect venue for that. A blooming hot day. She stood there in her race suit with a helmet. So we took her over. I took her over to the underground sign because what I wanted to do is to get one shot that was so typical London.
Yeah.
So I was hoping for everything. I got the red bus going past, her in a red suit, holding the helmet, and with the underground sign. Her hair was just, and it just worked. And I looked back on it now and I'm going, yeah, I got a buzz from taking those photographs. I felt like a proper photographer, not one that just rocks up at the side of the racetrack and that sort of thing. And I just wish, as I said to you earlier, that there were more photos like this of like Guido sat with his dog in Monte Carlo, of Meta stood there. You know, it should almost be compulsory that all of the drivers have Instagram accounts where they're putting up pictures the whole time, because that's the way where we can generate a little bit of interest in racing.
It takes a lot of time.
I'm not, yes, but there is a lot of time when we're not racing.
Yeah, of course, of course. You know me, I love the social medias and the work that comes with it. So I'm not shy to put in the hours. I mean, I don't know how many hours we just fiddle around to make this one today, and I even managed to make you muted. So sorry for that, Chris.
Yeah, hey, no worries. That's okay. You're probably not the first.
I am going to go over to picture number 9. So we have here a Formula 1 boat from Chap, I assume, with lights on.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's not a Formula One boat because actually the class they're racing in is actually the Formula 2 class engine. It's the Optimax on the back of it. This was taken in Rouen, which without doubt is probably my go-to race every time. I love Rouen. I've been going there since I started virtually.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously back then when we were racing, we had multi-brand racing. So we had the likes of OMC, Evenrude, Mercury, and I just fell in love with the whole event. It's typically French. It's almost chaotic in a way that they run things there, but it's just brilliant. I've never been to Le Mans, but I can only assume that it gives the same sort of buzz that you'd get in Le Mans for the 24-hour race, because back then, when I first started, we did run 24 hours. There was no break in the middle of the evening or middle of the night to stop and go and catch our breath. And also Ken McCrory, she said that he raced there as well. Pelly Brolin's raced. You know, there's like a whole host of Carella's raced there. Sean Torrente raced there. So, you know, it's a lot of the really well-known drivers have rocked up and raced there. It's just a fabulous event. And the whole town comes out. The picture is Philippe Chap. Now, he is Mr. Rouen. I mean, if you didn't have Chap racing, nobody would turn up, I get.
Really?
And it's just he is just such a personality there in France, in that particular region of Rouen, that people just come out and flock and watch the race. This was taken obviously in the middle of the night, and it's gone a lot easier, I have to say. Back in the days of Shoot and Transparency, it was almost like a hope and a prayer that it comes out, because obviously there was no instant response. So you just made sure that your exposure was correct, the shutter speed was correct, the flash had gone off the right time, and that you weren't too tired. Because a lot of the time you'd be stood on the bridge there at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you'd obviously have to fight your way to get a position because it was so busy.
How many people were there?
I stood on the bridge.
Yeah. Spectators.
Loads of people, because spectators would be there at 2 o'clock in the morning, whether the nightclubs had just finished, or I don't know whether they were coming out from there. But you know, it was one of those ones where you literally had to elbow yourself into the spot to get the pictures. And I loved it, because obviously you had the howl of the OMC 3 litres going underneath you, and you had the Mercury, and you had like a little bit of a factory battle. I was lucky.
Ken McCrory said it was a hell of a race, drove for both OMC and Mercury.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those ones that I really wish. In some ways, I know it's not going to happen now with the announcement they're not going to do any more Evenwood engines.
Yep.
But it's a real shame, because I think one of the things that could also salvage the fate of Powerboat racing is if we ever went back to multi-brand racing. Okay. But I can't see it happening.
Unfortunately, I don't believe that's happening either. But I've always envied the likes of Werner and Siebel and so on, who had the privilege of racing the factory on the factory race team and so on. It seemed to be somehow better and, of course, even more professional. And you confirmed it when you say that on Tuesday you had to send out 400 images and stuff like that. So. Yeah, definitely. Anything more to particularly mention when you're shooting at night? What kind of difficulties does that give you?
Just how much caffeine you want to take.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I love French coffee, and obviously I used to go over to Jean Vatel de Guin's truck, and I would sit there and drink coffee. Until I was buzzing. I mean, you didn't need Red Bull. Red Bull wasn't around those days. But as long as you had a couple of shots of strong French coffee, you were good to go until about 3 a.m.
I can imagine. We are going on to picture number 10, and it says Inverness start.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this one. That's a big field of boats, Chris.
Yeah, 2008. What an event! Probably, this is a shot that's just been used everywhere. Now it was almost like Poole was saying earlier. Have I ever taken the most perfect shot? This is probably up there amongst them. This was taken on the Round Britain Powerboat race, which Mike Lloyd promoted back in 2008. And I have the privilege of sitting on the side of a helicopter for photograph the entire race right round the coastline of the UK. Okay, we went down the Caledonian Canal, so we didn't touch the north of Scotland.
No.
But man, what 10 days that was. That was an awesome event to photograph. It just gave you a buzz. So much so that I literally was still flying, I think, when the helicopter put down. It was such an amazing event. And I mean, the beauty about this shot was that it's one of those ones that's a bit like the Guido Capellini shot I told you about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd flown with Keith, the pilot, on numerous occasions. We had this amazing chopper that we were up in, Augusta 109, and it would do the most amazing sort of pulls and stunts. And he was famous. He was a famous guy. I don't know whether you remember, but some of the people in the UK might remember a program called Treasure Hunt with Annika Rice, and Keith was her pilot. And so he was just a fantastic pilot, knew exactly where to position the helicopter. He made my job so much simpler, because half the time, you when you're flying in a helicopter, you've got two bodies slung around your neck. You've got a 35mm lens on one, or 35-70 on one lens, and you've probably got a 70 to 200 lens on the other camera body.
And what do you do with the hook?
You make sure that you're hooked in on this occasion. Yeah. And so what happened was we'd taken off from Inverness, and Keith and I had discussed this shot over and over again. And so as we're flying along there, and we get to the actual point of the arrow of the boats that you see. That the lead boat out there is the start boat, it's the Silverline one.
Okay.
And as I said, okay, so ready to go past. And as we went past, I took the picture and I went click, and I'm like, okay. And then we just kept going.
Yeah.
What I forgot to do was move it from single shot to multiple shots.
Okay.
Because as I was pressing the camera, I was expecting to get at least 10 frames per second.
Yeah.
And all I got was one frame per second. And I'm like, okay. And I just thought, I really can't get Keith to go back and do this again. We're too close to the mustering area.
Yeah.
So so I'm looking down at the camera and I'm looking at the readout on the back of the camera and I'm praying that everything works. And I'm thinking, oh, this might just work. This might not work. Because one of the things that with the beauty about obviously digital now is that it's instant replay.
Yeah.
So you're not having to worry about what the image looked like or hope and pray that you got it, because you've got it already there, you can see in the camera. So I thought, okay, all right, I won't say anything, let's just get back to the shoreline and hand over the films, because hand over the memory cards, because the beauty about that event was it was actually the first time I'd ever met John Moore.
Oh, really?
Our good friend. Yeah. It was one of those ones where, oh, by the way, you're sharing a room with him for 10 nights in a row. I've never met the guy before. Anyway, so, I'm sharing a room with a complete stranger and a couple of other people that were thrown in every so often. So John, he was like the media guru and the website guru and everything else like that.
Yeah.
So what happened was that he would come and meet the helicopter where we touched down, and half the time the helicopter actually landed in where the hotel was, like on the lawn there. So talk about making an entrance. Hey, and I would just like bundle out of the helicopter and John would be waiting there. He said, what have you got? What have you got? So I'd give him all like the memory cards. And he said, oh yeah, guess what? We've got the Scotsman newspaper waiting for an image.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh really? Okay, this is like the biggest newspaper in Scotland.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I think I might have a shot. And I'm like, it's only going to be one shot.
Yeah.
It's fairly easy to find. I'm hoping it's going to be in focus. And lo and behold, that's the shot, the Inverness start shot. And they ran it the following day in the newspaper. I think John actually managed to get it sent over to them with about 5 minutes before their deadline. So once again, that guy pulled out all the stops and got the pictures up. But it was used everywhere. It was in London Evening Standard, and it was used up and down the country. A lot of the people used it as like their advertising, that sort of thing. So I dined out on that one quite a bit, actually.
I can imagine. The mentioned John is actually the owner and chief editor of the Powerboat Racing World, a partner of both Chris and I, and he has also helped to prepare this program. So a shout out for Powerboat Racing World and John Moore for his excellent work for promoting the powerboat sport. Ken McCrory, Sarah and Bob says all brilliant pictures, incredible and great pictures. It was 5.
Thank you.
John says it was 5 seconds. It was not 5 minutes. He's on here. Let's see. A question pops up from Jason Manfred. He says, does John wish he had seen the Bristol race from the 70s and the 80s?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I probably would have liked to have gone to Bristol. I think the crowds there were just enormous. I was actually going to go there one year because I was working for another magazine, which was one of the ones that I first started working for when I started taking Powerboat, and that was Powerboat International magazine, which was run by, actually I'll make sure I get this right, it was the magazine that was written and edited by a woman called Pat Ainge, who actually she raced Formula 4, and she raced in Bristol as well. Now Pat was desperate for me to go to Bristol as well, and this was Mitsubishi were going to sponsor the race that we were going to go to.
Mitsubishi and Powerboat Racing, for me, that's Steve Curtin.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. Kermit, my good old friend. And tell you some stories there. And so what happened was Pat had lined up a press pass for me to go and photograph the Mitsubishi race, and then all of a sudden Mitsubishi pulled the plug.
Oh, really? That's a bummer.
Yeah, they stopped sponsoring it. And so really it didn't happen. But yeah, I would have loved to gone to Bristol to photograph the races there.
Chris, he is asking if you did Chris take photos of the Offshore 1 race in Plymouth when Paul Virik Nilsson drove the King of Shaves rolled over? I just love that place. Great view from the pits.
Yeah, I was in the helicopter Of all the places for it to roll, it was a weird place. But it was, once again, I was up in the same Augusta 109, and we were flying along, and it just literally just rolled right in front of us.
Incredible.
It was just bizarre. Yeah.
It's got to be one of the more screened videos on YouTube and social medias, that one.
Yeah, actually, I mean, Palviric, yeah, he's another good guy. I must admit, it was like, I'm hoping that he's feeling a lot better now. If I could pass on my best wishes to him, because obviously he was suffering a little bit from cancer, and I'm hoping that his treatment's got better. But you know what? I always said to him, he's too damn tall to be a Formula 2 pilot.
You know what? Paul Virik, clearly, obviously, good friends. He's Norwegian. We are communicating frequently. And when I told him that I was going to have you on the show, he said, "Best one so far." So that's a compliment right back at you.
Ooh.
That was Paul
thank you.
Virik.
Appreciate
That
that.
was Paul Virik this
Yeah.
afternoon, and he is training. He is making his workout, and he is soon back in a race cockpit. I can assure you that.
That's very good news.
He is working for the powerboats, for the pleasure boat business in Norway, and he is working hard to make sure that there is going to be a school program and so on and so on. So he is basically teaching people how to go fast in boats nowadays, and working for RS and so on. So he's very busy.
Yeah, I bet he is. Yeah.
Gary
Nice
says, great photos and history, Chris. Need to catch up for a chat when life returns to normal. When is that anyway? When do you think life is going to return to normal?
I'd love to say, but then what is normal?
Yeah, what is normal? I think we got a new normal standard, and that's what I'm hoping for, that we can all adopt to the new standard, which is like the social distance and so on and so on. My little city in Tønsberg is now open. The restaurants are open, and we have, like we said, got the green light to continue to plan. We never know what's going to happen in August. I mean, things can change by all means, but the way it looks right now is that we're going to be able to do our Tønsberg boat race, and you're not going to be there for the first time ever.
I don't know yet.
You don't
Depends. I might. Yeah. I don't know. I just need to suss out whether I need to come back in when I come back into the country, whether I need to go into isolation for 14 days or whatever. It's one of those things that I'm sort of like it's going to be last minute.
It's going to be last minute for the rest of us. A guy that has never been last minute is the guy which I've just pulled up on the screen now. Guido Capellini. Let's talk a little bit more about your friend, because we have now passed all the 10 images, Chris. It has been wonderful. Christopher Gulbrandsen says, I really enjoyed this live session. And next Sunday, I'm going to have the Sunday chat with no less than Guido Capellini. Do you have any juicy stories on that guy? Because 10 times world champion, I'm sure photographing him, you could have some good questions, couldn't you?
I could have some good questions, but then I have to say that obviously I've known him for so many years, and shall we just say we have a very good understanding?
That's fantastic. But Chris, we have now passed the hour. We have done our 10 images, and we have answered all the questions. We have announced that we are coming back next Sunday. And a shout out for you, Chris, because you're always helping me with your archive. It's never difficult to have images popping over and so on. So I hope that we are going to continue to work together for the next 30 years or whatever. Well, as long as we remember to recognize each other at least. But any last minute comments from you for the 2020 season? What's your tips? I've seen your comments in the comment fields and so on. You have a strategy for what you think is the right way to go. And I'm talking now about the class we are working together in, Formula 2.
I mean, okay, yeah, I've gone on record, and I think it's. I've said that it probably won't pan out like this. But 20 years ago, this weekend, a very good friend of ours, a certain Mr. Jerry Peachman, he won the Formula 2 World Championships
This
at Epernay.
this weekend.
This weekend. Yeah. 20
Oh,
years ago.
big shout out for
And
him.
for Jerry, yeah.
Yeah.
I was there. It was just an absolute fantastic weekend. Okay, the weather blew out one heat, so we really only had the best of three heats. But when it came to the final heat, obviously Mr. Fabio Comparato blew over with Sven Janssen, and away they went. And Jerry went along and picked up the trophy. Yeah, he picked up the title at the same time, and it was a fantastic event. Totally unexpected. He wasn't anywhere near considered to be winning the title. So, I mean, did we celebrate? God, I can tell you, did I have a hangover? I had a hangover. Well, he was sponsored by Red Bull. And he was a Red Bull Castrol driver, and Red Bull and vodka. That was plentiful in the silver salver that they gave him. And I must admit, when I woke up the next day, I was probably as green as the backdrop that you've just popped down. I mean, it's fantastic. So I mean, for 1 year only, let's make it Formula 2 World Championship at one event, somewhere like Abu Dhabi. I mean, obviously you can ask Guido next week. I'm probably going to drop him right in if I'm saying it. But what the Abu Dhabi club did last year was absolutely fantastic for Formula 2. They made us so welcome. And I would love to go back there and do, say, like 4 heats.
Yep.
You had Ed Garris on the other day, and he's twice European champion. So he is well used to racing and doing well in heat racing. You've got 4 starts, which is half the time is what the people come along and watch. They love the start. They love that moment. So it's going to be 4 chances for somebody to do well. And if you want, I mean, I know you're working on a similar sort of strategy at the moment where they reverse the grid halfway along.
Yep.
I'm not saying do that this year, but at the same time, I think that you would get such a buzz each time we had a heat, even if you did it a couple of heats a day and we stretched it over 2 days. And we know we have the facilities in Abu Dhabi to do it. We've got a huge wide open course, so I would have thought the course could be homologated for 24 boats very, very easy. I've seen back in the day when Parkinson ran the tour, I've seen 24 boats launch off the start dock there in Abu Dhabi. So yeah, we've got the space to do it. So hey, let's just give it a go for one, and that's in December. So by December, hopefully, everyone can travel again.
Let's hope so. Ken McCrory says, great program. Well done to both of you. Thank you very much, Ken. Carlos Modano says, well done, boys. Looking forward to listen to my old sparring partner next week, Carlos Modano. I used to race together with him in Formula 1. I wrecked his boat, I have to say. Still makes me feel sad. Jason has the last question. Chris, what other photographers do Chris admires within the sport? And thank you, guys. So that's a challenge to you. Which other photographer do you look up to?
Which other photographer do I like looking at his shots?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, when it comes to powerboat racing, I suppose it's got to be Simone Frode. I like what he does. I think we've shared a helicopter on numerous occasions, and I love what he does. He just seems to have a completely different way of photographing it. I think we complement each other. So yeah, Frode is a good guy.
I think we should stop there and call it a night. It's 9:10, and you have been watching 10 Pictures with Chris Davies. My name is Frode Sundsdal, and you've watched the Race Factory. Next Sunday at 1800 GMT time, I am blessed to have Guido Capellini with me in this studio. Be sure to follow because he has an announcement. I spoke to him today, and he says, I'm going to make a big announcement on your show next Sunday. So you better join us then. Thank you, Chris.
Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.